Hello, and welcome to another season of the Storied Arcs podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike.
And I'm your co-host, Alex.
And this season, we will be looking at the Umbrella Academy. But first, as is our custom, we are doing a creator spotlight. I think we commonly refer to these as zeros, but we always list them as creator spotlights. No one has complained yet, but I have a little glitch in my brain every time I see it, and I'm like, I would think of them as zeros, and I refer to the first episode being the one that covers episode 1 or volume 1. But this is part of the season, but we're not discussing the comic yet, I guess is what I'm trying to indicate. That's why it's a zero. We're not touching the plot. No spoilers in the creator spotlights.
I think they make it a connection. And if you've been along with us this far, I hope you understand what we're doing.
Yeah. So we've got five creators to cover.
Yeah. I guess we can start with that and then talk a little about the publication, because this book does have a curious and little circuitous route to get to where we are now. But yeah, I guess you want me to start off with our creative team, and
I think
I
mean, you must. I feel like the elephant in the room. Yeah, you have to start with the writer.
Yeah,
when it's such a big name.
Yeah, the writer, and I think it's credited in terms of creation wise to both writer Gerard Way and artist Gabriel, but really this is Gerard Way's kind of thing. I think he created the idea and even some of the characters, the general look. I think he bounced some ideas off of Ba for like final artwork, but we'll go ahead and call it kind of co-created by Gerard Way and Gabriel Ba. They're the big names. I'll get back to them in a little bit, because we know they're probably end with those, since there's more to say about them. They're the writer and artist throughout the entire series, all the issues, all the volumes. Go ahead and mention the colorist for the first 2 volumes was Dave Stewart, aka the greatest comic colorist in the history of comics.
He's everywhere.
He not just everywhere. He has an incredible history. Like I said, he is probably the best and well known. He's the kind of person that should never be up for Eisner's or anything else now, because he should just have an emeritus position, because there's no point.
They should name the Colorist Award after to the Dave Stewart Award and give it to other people. That's what it should be.
Yes, he is at that kind of level. He was on the book for the first 2 volumes, and then for the 3rd volume, Hotel Oblivion, the colorist is Nick Filardi. I think we'll get to why probably they changed colors. I'm sure it was a scheduling thing. Dave Stewart the first 2, Nick Filardi for volume 3. The letterer throughout is Nate Picos of Blambot. Picos is a prolific letterer. He founded Blambot as a lettering studio, a font studio. He does all kinds of work, mainly smaller companies, but he has worked for DC and Marvel as well. He does a lot of Dark Horse books. I don't know if that's a standing contract with them. But a lot of his stuff is Dark Horse books. For example, he does letters for all of the Black Hammer series, everything in Jeff Lemire's world in Black Hammer. Because as we talked about, when Lemire does most of his creator own work, like his Image stuff, his go-to letterer is Steve Wands, whether that's anything he writes and draws himself, or I think a lot of Lemire stuff in Image, Steve Wands is his go-to guy for his letters and design work. But all of his Dark Horse stuff, which is all of his Black Hammer work, Nate Picos does that. Nate Picos of Blambot, exclamation point.
Well, and let's just say, I mean, if you have walked through a comic shop and seen the logos for Middle West, Extraordinary X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, All New X-Men, basically the Marvel section. Twig, Reborn, I Hate Fairyland, Black Hammer, Me Love in the Dark. Those are his graphic designs, the banner that's on the cover of every issue. And it's just geez, man, leave some work for other people.
He does some really, really incredible work. And I think his lettering is incredibly strong throughout Umbrella Academy. There's a lot of different ways it's used, a lot of different fonts that are needed to show different actions, different characters, things like that. I think it stands out as being very integral and very important and noticeable in the good way. Because obviously a lot of times, a lot of things like lettering is noticeable when it's bad or it's difficult to read or things like that. I think it really, really enhances the reading experience for the Umbrella Academy. And then I guess finally our last list of creator here before we jump back to Way and Ba are the covers. The first series, Apocalypse Suite, which we'll start covering next week. Those covers were all done by James Gian. Gian has done a lot of incredible work. He has kind of this stylized realism, like the character design has a realistic feel to it, but there is a stylization and a little bit how it's colored and how it's shaded. I know he has a DC cover art book, which DC puts out there, which are these big like poster size that you can like they're actually perforated edges, so you can actually detach them from the book itself.
Yeah, I've got the Jenny Frison one.
Yeah. I was gonna say some of the artists, Jenny Frison, Art Germ, Jim Lee, some of them have those kind of big oversized poster style books. James Gian has one as well for DC. So he did the covers for volume 1, the Apocalypse Suite, and then going forward in volumes 2 and 3, Gabriel Ba, the series artist, took care of the main covers. So but yeah, that's our creative team. So I guess we'll go into Way and Ba. I'll start with Gerard Way. I'm
guessing.
Are you I was gonna ask, are you a My Chemical Romance fan?
I gotta say, I don't like the way this sentence comes out. But I think I'm too old to have been a My Chemical Romance fan.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like middle school angst type stuff, and I think
like you had to be in middle. So you said like you had to be in middle school when it came out.
Yeah.
That kind of
yeah. Like for the emo type stuff, and I think they broke into the scene like 2001, but really made it big a little bit later than that.
Yeah.
And it's like 2001. I'm already in high school by then. I've grown out of that type of emo phase, moved into metal and then other things.
I'm older than you are. But I have listened, sorry, to MCR. I understand the appeal. I do think it has a very fervent like Gen Z following. Like I think they're like it is big and kind of the. I guess you qualify.
I think even
like
younger millennials. I'm the old millennial.
Yeah, kind of the young.
My wife is on the young spectrum of the millennial.
Yeah, but they have a fervent following, and if you don't know what we're talking about, Gerard Way is the lead singer and co-founder of My Chemical Romance. They're a big, emo rock, quasi kind of that kind of emo punk, emo metal, emo rock, kind of all mixed together.
They definitely had their own sound. I mean, I've gone and listened to them since, but I can't claim that I was listening to them at the time they were popular.
Sure. I said I've never been a huge fan, but I know their music. I have listened to it. I'm familiar with it. I can pick it out. And so I can see the appeal. I think you're right. If you were of a certain age, I think in the same way that, the music you listen to, the music that comes out when you are in middle school, early high school, that kind of music always sticks with you as like, this is the best stuff in the world. Which is why I have Sirius XM in my car, and the only station I ever listen to is Lithium, which is 90s alternative and grunge. Because
I would listen to that. That's great.
That's the stuff that came out from like 92 to 97 or whatever, 98 maybe. And that stuff in my mind is just the greatest stuff in the world. And if you were of that age when My Chemical Romance came out, I'm sure you'd have a big connection to it. But I think what was interesting to me, and this is looking back in hindsight, I remember when the Umbrella Academy was announced and coming out and being put off as like, oh, okay, so big rock star who likes comics is parlaying that fame and going to moonlight as a comic book creator now, only to find out later that no, actually he was a comic book creator who moonlighted as a rock star, and then his rock band took off and became massively famous, so he went with it. And I think in the end made the right career choice going that way first. But he started making comics, and I believe, I think he first self-published his first comic as a teenager. I believe, and someone may check me on it if there's a big Gerard Way fan out there or MCR fan. I believe he was working, or he had worked as like an intern at I think at DC at the time when My Chemical Romance ended up going big. This is late 90s, early aughts. So he was in the industry.
Thinking it was like the Marvel writer trainers program that they do.
Yeah, no, I think it was something similar, but I believe
okay,
he was at like
DC.
DC Vertigo. But he was working in comics, and I believe he went to art school. Like, I think if you would have asked like
Yeah, his
15-year-old
bio
Gerard Way,
so I've got like the trades that I'm reading
Mhm.
for Umbrella Academy
Yeah.
come in a like the hard box slipcase.
Oh, nice.
So they're not like the deluxe like hardcover volumes. These are like trade paperbacks with like a little nicer, thicker paper, but nice bonus stuff in the back, and it's got little bios on them. You know, it says like he wrote his first comic when he was 5
Yeah.
and illustrated it, and you know he went to art school and all these other accolades he has. Let's say began writing and drawing comics at the age of 5 when his grandmother first put a pencil in his hand. Like, first of all, there's no way he didn't hold a pencil before age 5, but not to dispute what he's doing here. Having developed a lot of the arts, Way attended the School of Visual Arts in New York City, where he honed his skills both as a writer and an artist before he made a career as a musician.
Yeah.
He was a guest speaker at the prestigious Oxford Union. He's a Grammy-nominated art director and lives in LA.
Yeah.
That's actually, for how much this guy has done, a very modest biography to stick in the back of a book.
Well, it's very clear though that it is meant to be. That is the comic creator, comic writer, like version of that. You know, if you were if you read the lining notes, music site, yeah,
right. If you read the liner notes in the CD, it would be about how he like started playing guitar at age 10 or something like that.
So I was initially dismissive, unjustly so, thinking, oh, what is this guy? You know, again, thought he was a rock star moonlighting as a comic book creator when it really was the other way around. And so, you know, I was initially hesitant, but you know, in the end, you see that he's got chops, and not only did this book come out, which was 2007, we'll get into how it was published, but you know, this comes out and kind of establishes a bit of his bona fides, and then as My Chemical Romance kind of takes I guess like a bit of a break through like the mid 2010s, he really starts going a lot harder into comics. And in 2016, he curated a pop-up imprint at DC called Young Animal, which housed some of it was like a mature line, but not in the way that like Black Label is or was. It's kind of a mature line with mature characters, but they're kind of the wacky offbeat characters.
Right.
Way he wrote Doom Patrol there, kind of revived Doom Patrol, which is obviously a big influence, and we'll get into that when we talk about the Umbrella Academy. He wrote Doom Patrol for Young Animal. It also had Shade the Changing Girl, Mother Panic, Dave Carson as a cybernetic eye, Eternity Girl, Collapser, and even Far Sector, which I think is kind of the latest book to be published under the Young Animal imprint. Far Sector is the new Green Lantern book that's written by N.K. Jemisin. So you know,
right.
You know, that was going into, I think, even from 2019 to 2021. I don't know if that comes back, if it'll still be on Young Animal, but you know, for 4 or 5 years there, DC had this imprint. You know, they also had this wacky crossover Doom Patrol had with the JSA called Milk Wars, where they battled a villain called Milkman Man. It was one of the wildest books in crossover events I've ever read.
It's a prequel to Ice Cream Man, right?
It was completely ridiculous, but it was so much fun, and it was home to those kind of offbeat, kind of weirder characters, I guess. You know, but he doesn't only have, I guess DC is kind of where his main work is done, but he also had he currently has a significant influence on the Marvel universe, in that he is the credited co-creator along with artist Jake Wyatt of Penny Parker and SPDR. Most people know Penny Parker from the Into the Spider-Verse movie, and now that version is radically different from the version that Way and Wyatt created for the original Spider-Verse event back in 2014. But the same idea is there. Penny Parker and SPDR, which is some version of a mech Spider-Man. Again, the version is very different, but that idea is what they used and borrowed for the Into the Spider-Verse movie, which again has become, you know, wildly popular. So that's a Way co-creation there. So, you know, he has titles and influence on kind of both of the big two. His weirdest comic though has to be The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, which is another book that was published on Dark Horse, like the Umbrella Academy. This was a comic that he co-wrote with Sean Shaw, and art was by Becky Cloonan. Becky Cloonan's one of my favorite comic creators. This is in 2013, like 2014. And okay, stay with me here. The comic True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, it was a sequel to the My Chemical Romance album titled Danger Days, True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys. So this was a comic that was a sequel to the story that was presented in the album.
I got to tell you, if Mike Carey could play guitar, he would have done that too.
Yeah. Hold on.
The Unwritten would have an album.
Probably so. Yeah. Not done yet though. That was in 2014. In 2020, 2021, there was another Killjoys comic. This was called True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, National Anthem. And this was not a sequel. This was a comic adaptation of the story that was presented in the album Danger Days, True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys. So I guess if you listen to the album and didn't quite get the stories of the characters or whatnot, National Anthem is basically a prequel to the actual comic, because it is a story that was presented in the album from My Chemical Romance. That is a flex of a major selling rock star who also creates comics, to do something like that and to weave those things together, or at least attempt to. I don't know how well they succeeded. I mean,
could you imagine the elevator pitch for that if you weren't a rock star?
Oh yeah, no, you wouldn't get past the door. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I was like, what if I went in and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write a continuation of the story from Led Zeppelin 2.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be like, well, first of all, no, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
The only thing comparable I can think of, which just shows you the difference between being a rock star and not, is the book Secret Path by Gord Downie and Jeff Lemire, where Gord Downie wrote a 10-song album that told a story, and then Jeff Lemire wrote a book to illustrate it, and then they sunk them up for like a short film type thing.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like you're crossing mediums for storytelling. But I mean, no one's ever heard of that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's one big difference. The other big difference is like that it wasn't a continuation. It was like inspired by, it's almost like writing an original soundtrack.
I was gonna say it was a co-creation almost, them doing that together. Yeah. This is him writing an album with his band, putting it out there. And, I'm guessing it's like a high concept album. You're supposed to be able to follow characters and story and plot through these songs and as they progress through the album. And then you're supposed to take all that in and then pick up the comic and read that. So I read that original True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys comic. And yeah, I didn't understand what was going on because I hadn't listened to the album. And even if I had listened to the album, I don't know if I would have known what's going on. But that's the kind of flex you can do when you are a major selling rock star who also is an award-winning comic creator. So so he doesn't have the longest CV, but said the things he has done, said some of them have really hit and they've made an impact. So part of me wishes he wrote comics more. And I think
he probably will. But he can be choosy now.
He can be very choosy. And I would imagine, if he wanted to jump on like a DC book for a little while, they probably would let him. If he had a pitch for something, if he had a pitch for a miniseries, I'm sure they would let him do that. I'm sure even Marvel would too.
I'm sure anyone, even if he just wanted to be on like a creative team and sit on a Zoom call every 3 months, they would love to put his name on the front cover of a book.
Exactly. To have his name attached to something, which is the big reason why I'm sure that Young Animal was promoted the way it was, that it was curated by him. His name, again, is in the credits for a lot of those books simply because, he ran the line. And obviously they got him to write Doom Patrol, so he was writing the flagship title on that imprint. But at the same time, you saw Young Animal on a cover of a DC book, and you knew that came from Gerard Way's line, that it came from that, whatever that was in some way was passed through him. I'm not saying he got okayed everything, not saying he gave notes and everything, but just the idea that it was kind of his stamp. So if you were in on him and his vibe and his, I guess his storytelling kind of thought process, if you like those kind of characters and that kind of presentation, you felt pretty comfortable buying any of those Young Animal books because you were you were selling the name and the history that comes with that, both in both mediums. You're selling that both with his music career and what he'd done in comics. So, but yeah, no. So I think I was mentioning Umbrella Academy, My Chemical Romance. You know, they had taken a break or broken up for a while, and then they'd come back together and do some more stuff. And I'm sure they'll always be a part of his life, as any musician is. But yeah, as you get older, you know, not everybody's the Rolling Stones. Not everyone's out there at like 70, 80 years old. But so yeah, I would love him to write more. I think it's great. I said it doesn't always hit with me, but I like that he thinks out of the box. I like that he tries different things, different ideas. I like that his comics tend to be a little off center, a little off kilter, a little weirder. I like that in comics. I said I appreciate when creators try things, even if I don't necessarily like them. And I think we will get into that as we discuss the Umbrella Academy through the end. But I can appreciate the attempt. I can appreciate the vision, even if I can read the vision and be like, yeah, no, that worked. But I like when someone tries. And I think he's someone that can bring that little bit of offbeat mindset to whether they're creator-owned characters or, you know, like an established character and one of the big two publishers. So,
yeah, I mean, I got to say, I'm debating when to say this. We'll get into it more when we get into the book, but I also assumed he was like the rock star coming into comics and was trying to read it like that. And I felt like, oh, he's like clearly so sure, he's so creative. Some of this stuff seems like gaudy for the sake of gaudiness in terms of like storytelling and stuff. But then after like 2 issues, I was like, no, he just like knows what he's about.
Yeah.
And he's like,
no, definitely.
He's a weird guy, but he's not like, apologies, because I'm afraid this is the second shot we've taken at him, but I was afraid he was like a Jared Leto, where it's just like, I have to be as weird as possible and just make everyone know it. And I was like, I really don't get that vibe from him after I really read him.
I think that's a great point. But I do want you to save that, though, because I think that's...
Yeah, we'll save it.
We'll get into that, because I agree with you, because I came into it, again, with a very similar mindset, because I didn't come to this book because of Gerard Way. I bought it initially in spite of him, because, again, I thought he's parlaying, oh, I'm a rock star, I like comics, I now have the power to say I want to write one, and not knowing what his history was, not knowing he knows any, you know, what does he know about comics? Turns out he knows a whole hell of a lot about it. You know, so yeah, let's put a pin in that and come back to that, because again, my draw to this book is who we're going to talk about next, which is the artist Gabriel Ba. Gabriel Ba is one of my favorite artists in all of comics. I knew you'd be an easy
sell on that one.
Yeah, this is, if it were an artist I didn't know, I don't know if I would have picked this book up, because again, I would have been turned off initially by Gerard Way's association, because I would have been dismissive of him, wrongly so. But because of Ba's art, to me, that was worth picking up, because I wanted to read that, because again, he is one of my favorite artists. He often works with his twin brother, Fabio Moon. They're 2 Brazilian artists. A book we've mentioned before, I think I've mentioned a bunch, is Day Tripper, a book that we may eventually do on this show. It is one of my favorite books of all time. It is an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous book, an incredible story. And when Moon and Ba work together, when the brothers work together, it just says by them, because their art styles are so similar, and it's unclear. It isn't like one's a writer, one's an artist, or anything like that. They just create their work. Day Tripper, I think, is the best thing they've done. They have another book out.
Two Brothers is quite good.
Two Brothers. Yeah, Two Brothers is great. That's an adaptation of I think a best-selling Brazilian novel. They took that book about 2 twin brothers who live like separate lives. So I'm sure that also hit very home for them as they did that. But that's a great adaptation. It's another beautiful book. They also did something I really, really love. They illustrated, or they adapted a Neil Gaiman short story called How to Talk to Girls at Parties, which was eventually adapted into a movie. And I don't know how much of the book they use, like the aesthetic and the art style, because I haven't seen the movie. But that's a short story that Neil Gaiman wrote that Moon and Ba then adapted into kind of a, I don't know, like a prestige length style book. It's not a very long story, so it wasn't like a full series, but it's also not like a full graphic novel. It's not like a big 200 some odd pages. It's pretty thin and short, but again, it's beautifully illustrated and just beautifully designed when those two work together. They do work apart sometimes. I think one kind of funny note is Gabriel Ba started an image book with Matt Fraction called Casanova, which is a very fun book. It's a cool book. It's had multiple different volumes and iterations, but he actually left that book after the first arc, maybe first two arcs or something like that. He left Casanova to do Umbrella Academy and to jump in to continue the series.
That's a good call. No shade at Matt Fraction.
Well, no,
obviously we love Matt Fraction, but
he left to do that. But who came in to fill his place on Casanova was his brother Fabio Moon. So, like, if you read those books and you look at them, the art style doesn't change because those guys are so similar. The character design, the approach to comics are so similar. And again, whether he was trying to mimic and hold that style, I don't know. Whether it's just natural that they both draw that way, which I tend to think is the case. But it was seamless throughout. And Bob jumped back in, and if you pick up the various issues and the various volumes of Casanova, you'll see some combination of Matt Fraction, Gabriel Ba, Fabio Moon on the cover, sometimes all three of the names, just two of them. But it was kind of a seamless transition, at least for the reader standpoint, because that art style just flows right through. But yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, just not that we're talking about Fabio Moon in this episode, but when we get to Blambot, you can go to his website and see the custom fonts that he's designed. Mm-hmm. And side by side on the page, you can see Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon's proprietary fonts based on their handwritings.
Yeah.
And man, they're close. Like Fabio Moon is like slightly more like italicized, which is it's like, if I did not see them side by side, I would assume it was the same letter.
Yeah. Oh, and again, I'm not here to say that they are clones of each other, but I think their styles are close enough that is seamless. Again, when you read a book like Day Tripper, and it is unclear who wrote what part, who drew what part, who colored it, it doesn't matter. It's cliche to say that, because they're twins, there's that kind of mind meld thing. But that just because it's cliche doesn't mean it may not be true. When those two work together, I think there is something really beautiful and really seamless about it, and they're amazing storytellers. And so I love anything they do together. And like I said, Bob was my draw into this book. And so, he's an artist. Or both of them, Moon and Bob, if they're together, they're on a book, I'm going to check it out. That's enough for me to check out a book just to see what it is. If they're together, obviously I'm going to get no questions asked. I'm going to pre-order that as soon as I can. If it's just one of them working with a different writer or something like that, I will still check it out because I want to see what those guys do. I'm glad it did, because it brought me to this book, which is one that I would have been dismissive of any other way. I wouldn't have read it. It would have taken multiple people I trusted to be like, hey, you should read the Umbrella Academy, and I would have had to have been really sold on it if I didn't have an in of, well, if I don't like the writing, at least the art's going to look cool. Like I can live with that on a book, more so than I can live with great writing and art I don't connect with. That's much harder for me. Great writing, if it's really great writing and bad art, I can hold on that I can do that. If it's okay writing and bad art, that's very tough for me. But if the art is good, if I love the art, I can look past any level of writing. It could be the best writing ever. It could be garbage. If the pages look awesome, I can fight through it. So I don't know how you are on that spectrum.
That's an interesting question. I mean, the one that I just keep thinking about it. I feel like at some point I'm going to have to prod you to read the book Low by Remender, because that was one where the art drew me in, and even though it drew me in, some of the characters were hard to tell apart because it was just the style of art that it was.
Yeah.
And then the writing, I like reading. If you read my like Goodreads reviews, I think there's 6 trades. I was like very bipolar through the series. I was like, oh, this is great. I love it. Oh my gosh, that one was so corny. I hated it. And then it was like, oh my gosh, it's great. I love it. And it ended up, I like the way it ended and resolved, relative to how comics end. But it's just one of those where it was like, when the writing was annoying me, the art was still so beautiful that I kept turning the page.
It could carry you through, sure.
Right. And then there were times where the art was just like slightly too distorted and distracting. But the writing, I was like, okay, well, now you've hooked me in with the premise and the world and some of the characters. Not the most impressive roster of characters ever, but a couple good ones. Sure. So anyway,
I'll give it a shot. Again, Remender is someone as a writer. I think he's pretty binary for me. Either I read something by him and I loved it, or I read something written by him and just like, nope, didn't get past the first couple issues, and it didn't connect with me. So yeah, he's someone that's very, very polarizing for me.
Which doesn't mean, I didn't hear you say he's a bad writer. I just heard you say like, just don't connect all the time.
Yeah, I mean, like he wrote Deadly Class. And I love Deadly Class, even though Deadly Class ended kind of with a bit of a whimper, but overall, Deadly Class I loved. But yeah, it can be hit or miss, something like that. But again, for me, it's great art. If great art is there, that'll always sail me through.
Yeah, there are for sure artists that I will buy. Mm-hmm. I would say I'm more inclined. Like I have writers that are auto pools for me,
sure,
and I will suffer through almost any art
for
a writer that I like. That being said, the writers I like tend to work with great artists.
Sure.
Even themselves sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine, anything Sean Phillips does, he's your guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you too. There are writers. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with, but there are definitely some artists that if they have a book out, there are only a handful of writers that are just like, I don't care who they work with. I'm just not reading them because I know I'm not going to like it. Very, very few. But yeah, if there are some artists out there, if they're on a book with either a writer I don't know or a writer, someone like a Remender who it's a coin toss whether I'll like this writing or not. If it's an artist that I like, a style that I like, I will give it a shot and hope for the best. And again, even if it's not great, even if I don't connect with the writing, I'll hang in there for the artist. Because at the very least, I can skip past the words and just look at the pretty pictures. I can appreciate that part of it. So I
gotta say, like my guy Jeff Lemire, mm-hmm. I don't even ask who the artist is. Like, it's like,
but really with Lemire, it's probably like one of four people, including himself. At
that's
this
true,
point.
except with like Black Hammer, which
Black Hammer was intentional. I think that was intentional because he's building a whole universe, and so he's pulling all these different people there. But
although I have to say the colorist for Black Hammer was Dave Stewart, and a lot of Umbrella Academy was reminding me of Black Hammer.
Oh, there's a lot of it there, mm-hmm.
and I was like,
they're similar.
I was like, the plots, like the concepts are like similar enough, but like the colors and the styling, was felt Black Hammer world.
And I'm glad because that's actually again second thing to put a pin in for when we talk about volume 1. But I have notes on that as well in terms of specifically on Black Hammer and books like that, because that's a family of comics that I really like. That's a genre of comics that I really like. So we'll come back to that. But no, I don't think you're wrong on that at all. And I think part of that is just the idea that regardless of what publisher you're at, you're still on some level, these are superhero comics. Whether it's a different spin, whether what the characters are, what the powers are, there's still an inherent superhero-iness to them, to the action scenes, to all the surroundings. I think there is a common thread there. So I don't think it's out of the ordinary or unexpected that you'd see those threads for a colorist who is used to doing that, to know what these beats should feel, what they should look like, how they should play to the audience. I'm not shocked by that at all. But again, second thing to put a pin in that we'll discuss more next week. So
and probably a pretty smooth transition if we want it into Dave Stewart.
Yeah, I said I mean I cover. I'm not going to go too much into his work there. I mean, because again, I'm not going to cover all of his CV because it's too long. Just know that he really is the greatest comic colorist of all time. That all the great artists, all the great colorists that are out there, like, I'm sorry, you're not as good as Dave Stewart was going to be. His name is legendary. He has colored some of the greatest books of all time, and he should be the eponymous name of the Eisner, of the colorist award. So
perhaps someday.
maybe someday if they ever if they went that route. So
yeah, sorry. So was there anything else on Ba?
No, I think that covers all the creators there. I'm not going to go too far on anybody else, but I think that covers what we need to cover for the creators there. I think there is something to be said about the publication of this book because, like I mentioned, it was a little wonky, it was a little weird. So, if you have nothing else on creators, should we go into that?
Yeah. All I was going to say is that our series cover artist, not the ones that Ba didn't do. That your guy
James
from
Sheehan.
Fables, right? He did the first 81 covers for Fables.
I mean,
and
Gian has done. Yeah, he said he's done so much work.
That's a legendary pool. And the Kevin Smith like Green Arrow run, just like kind of like it's just another one of those guys where it's like I looked at the inside thing and I was looking at the names and I was like, I don't think I knew who that is. And then I was like, oh, yeah, no, I have dozens of his books in my short box.
He's a guy that he's a prolific cover artist. And he is someone that when you see his style, you will recognize it. Again, it is this hyper realistic, kind of style to it that it looks like it's photorealistic stuff, like he's trying to go that route, but it's intentionally skewed just off to be a little more illustrative. So no, James Sheehan is great, and said he's someone that can sell books just solely on the cover, which is, I mean, it's how you get those kind of poster size collections that DC puts out because they understand that if they put whether it's a main cover or a variant cover or something like that, if they had done that with his art, that's enough to sell someone because there are people who are going to collect only his stuff. Again, it's someone like an Art Germ or a Jenny Frison or someone like that. Peach Momoko is like that right now. There are artists out there that they know if you can get them to draw a cover, whether it's the main cover or a variant cover or anything like that, that there is a following for that artist. And I think James Sheehan is definitely in that category. His stuff is very cool and
what I think that's
very beautiful.
Especially true when you're not doing a big 2 book, when you're trying to move, so many people come into the shops for the big 2 and you really want your indie title to stand out. You've got to have a cover that just grabs people. Yeah.
You'll see it. And hopefully that's enough for someone to pick it up and flip through it. And that's, I mean, you can't ask for much more. If someone's walking to a comic shop with no idea what it is, if they pick it off the shelf, I don't know what percentage is going to buy it if they do that, but it's greater than 0, right? So,
right. So, I mean, you give the book a better chance to move with people who, you and I meet up in the indie section of each shop. We find each other in the Image or Dark Horse or Boom section or wherever. But
I also, I'm one of the obsessives that track new comics releases and solicitations and things like that. So I know what's coming out, but I understand that vast majority of people aren't.
And we go to a good shop that doesn't put them off in their own little corner. They're with all of the Marvel and DC books interspersed.
But the vast majority of comic readers are going in because they need to pick up Spider-Man or Batman or Spawn or whatever it is. They're picking up the thing they read, and you got to draw their attention somehow. And a great cover can do that. And Gian's covers for Volume 1 for the Apocalypse Suite are really evocative. They really stand out because they don't look like anything else. They're I don't want to say they're busy, but there's a lot going on them. They're very detailed. They're not these kind of sparse covers. That is a little more of like Bond Moon style for their covers. Gian's covers are full to the max, and they're absolutely beautiful, I think. So I think it's a good marketing.
The white space on their covers is nuts.
Oh yeah, again, that's a stylistic intention. They're doing that on purpose. That is what they do. So it is a big change from what Gian does. But yeah, if you're trying to hook somebody for that first series, Gian's covers are going to stand out when you see a row of new comics, shelves of them when you walk into your shop. They would have stood out without question. So
yeah. Okay, let's talk about the production of this book.
Sure. Yeah. So again, we're starting next week. We'll start with Volume 1, aka Umbrella Academy, the Apocalypse Suite. This is one of those books that it's a continuing series, but every arc, instead of being separate arcs, are like separate miniseries. So which is a little that's I'm not a huge fan of that myself. I'd rather just be the Umbrella Academy volume, issues 1 through 6, and then like 7 through 12 or whatever it is. But instead, they each have their own subtitles.
Sure, but like the owner of our comic shop, when I was young in comics, described that as Dark Horse's thing.
I think so. I think
he said, look, I love their books, but I hate selling their books because like a series like Black Hammer, did Black Hammer 1 through 12 and then Black Hammer Age of Doom 1 through 12, which was just a straight continuation.
It was
of Black Hammer. Yeah. And then it was, I don't know, at least 10 6-issue series that were all in the Black Hammer universe. And he was like, this is so hard for the casual fan. Like, this is only for diehard fans. Yeah. And that's Dark Horse. And I've noticed, Dark Horse is not exclusively that. No. But if it's going to have a weird publication thing and lots of little mini series, it tends to be a Dark Horse thing. And,
I think also,
and the most extreme, not that it was on purpose, was, we already covered The Seeds, which was 2 issues in print and then 3 and 4 straight to trade.
Yeah, but that again, those
circumstances beyond there.
Yeah, no, but I can complain about that here. In the end, I think it ended up working for them here in a way because Volume 1, published from September 2007 to February 2008, followed then relatively shortly Volume 2, which is Dallas, another 6 issues from November 2008, so just later that year, to May 2009. There was also a Free Comic Book Day issue, which came out before Volume 1. That was in May 2007. So they put that out. That was a teaser preview, and then we go into Volume 1. And that Free Comic Book Day issue is included in the trade for Volume 1. It's in the back of Volume 1, so you get that there. But so you had these 2 volumes, and then, they teased Volume 3, which is Hotel Oblivion, which didn't come out for 10 years. So let's imagine a world where it wasn't Umbrella Academy Hotel Oblivion #1. It was Umbrella Academy issue 11, following issue 12, which is the end of the Dallas arc. And there was 10 years in between that. That actually kind of would be, I think, weirdly more frustrating if you're waiting for a continuation versus what your mind now says is, well, this is the next series of Umbrella Academy. Even though it is one continuous story, it's one long narrative, but there the optics work out better, I think, of, oh, well, we're just waiting for the next volume of this, not a continuation of numbering. I think there's a perception thing there. But there was a 10-year gap. When Hotel Oblivion finally came out, it said October 2018, ran through June 2019. That was originally announced. My note here, it was announced in 2010. So it was like Dallas finished up, Volume 2 finished up in May 2009. The next year it was announced that Hotel Oblivion was coming out. And then, many, 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 many years later it came out. And I think we should say, for full transparency's sake, we like on this podcast to pick books and discuss books that are completed story arcs that are finished, or maybe not completed story arcs, but the runs are finished. That you can.
They're not. Right. You don't have to go to get a weekly pool.
Yeah.
Or you can buy in.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, if you can get from the library.
Yeah, but or you can read everything we're going to talk about is something that's available, and you're not going to have to go back to something and read more later. So we should say that in July 2020, which we're now coming up on 3 years on, they did announce that a Volume 4 was coming out, which was going to be called Sparrow, which is going to be called Sparrow Academy. Again, that was 3 years ago now. As far as I can tell, there has been absolutely zero movement as to X that actually happens. Worth noting, though, that for those who may have come to this season of our show because of familiarity with the Netflix adaptation of the Umbrella Academy, the Sparrow Academy were characters and plot lines and ideas that were introduced in season 3 of the show. Now, I personally have not watched the show all the way through. I've actually only made it through like the first half of the first season. I basically just ran out of time. There's too much stuff to watch. So I actually have not watched all the show, but I do know that the characters and ideas of the Sparrow Academy were introduced in the show. And that is what's supposed to be the plot of this theoretical Volume 4 of the comic. So whether or not it's the exact same idea or the exact same plots with the exact same characters, that kernel of idea is what they're supposed to be doing. But if form holds when Sparrow Academy, if and when it does come out, we've still got several years, maybe 6 or 7 before that sees the shelf. So as of right now, as we're taping this, almost 3 years since it was announced, said as far as I know, there's been absolutely zero movement on volume 4 of the Umbrella Academy. So I feel it's safe to say that as of right now, the 3 that are out are the 3.
10-year wait. Yeah.
Yeah. The 3 that are out now are the 3 you're going to have to read. So, and yeah, there are collected. I think so. Mike, you mentioned you have a slipcase collection.
I do.
3 individual trades. Yeah. So those 3 trades are the ones that were out. There's
personally nothing that bothers me more than buying a slipcase book and then them releasing another book.
Yeah.
And I know there's like a Tales from the Umbrella Academy collection.
Well, which
I would not consider, part of this podcast.
Something we're not going to cover. There is a spinoff. There was a one-shot spinoff, which is called Hazel and Cha-Cha Save Christmas. Hazel and Cha-Cha are 2 characters that are introduced in volume 2 of the Umbrella Academy. So we'll get to that in a couple of weeks. That's just a one-shot. That was kind of a prestige format that came out in 2019. Right after Hotel Oblivion kind of finished up, volume 3 finished up. So it's like they got back into the world. They told volume 3 the story. Then they had this one-shot special that was under the I almost said under the umbrella of, but that's really what it is, this Tales from Umbrella Academy. And then in 2020, they came out with a full spin-off series, which is called You Look Like Death. And that's a 6-issue spin-off mini that stars Klaus, aka Seance, aka number 4, in terms of the Umbrella Academy. It's an adventure like in Hollywood or whatnot. And that's a fun little lark. But yeah, we're not going to cover those in this season. We're going to stick to the main 3 trades, which again, you can get out there in trades in the 3 separate volumes. I do believe there are also hardcover library editions that are either out or in the process of coming out. I think they each have they're big oversized. They're kind of like the DC Absolutes, if you're familiar with those, in terms of size on a bookshelf or whatnot. They're really big. They're oversized. They're beautiful. To me, unwieldy to read, but
I finally hit that point, and
they look really good on a shelf, though. They do. They look really good on a shelf.
Honestly, the library editions don't even look good on my shelf anymore. I don't have a shelf big enough for them. And they're too tall for most shelves, so you have to put them on the top shelf everywhere.
Yeah, you do, or you have to have shelves just for those oversized editions. Like I said, the DC Absolutes, something like that. If you have a whole bunch of them, they look really good. If you only have a few, they do look out of place. But there are multiple ways to find them. I guess you could also go out and try to find the single issues. I think they are harder to find. They're a little pricier. I think partly because of the show, there's a demand there. Anytime anything gets adapted, but also they weren't like the biggest print runs out there. So I know you can find them. I think Apocalypse Suite Volume 1 are the hardest to find. Strangely, I think if you're talking about single issue pricing, I think the most expensive issue is actually the Free Comic Book Day issue. Because I don't think there were a whole lot of those out there. I think that's probably going to run you like $35-$40, something like that. I think at least. Like when I see that it shows or whatnot, that's a hard one to find. So if you do find it, so that's probably the most collectible, quote unquote, of the single issues. But they are out there if you are so inclined to go find them. But
I just pulled them up online. If you find them, buy them because Umbrella Academy Apocalypse Suite number 1 for an 8.0. $48, 7.5, $45.
Yeah,
that's for number 1. Number 2 is $11. Number 3 is $13.
Yeah,
they're all over $10. Yeah, and they were all $2.99 cover prices.
Yeah. And again, that is mainly because of the adaptation. Again, anything that something becomes popular in adaptation,
if the adaptation is good.
Well, yeah, right. Of course,
I mean, that's the other thing is.
Yeah, that's true. Fair.
That's part of the speculator game. Is
yes,
I unloaded my single issues of Sweet Tooth right before the show dropped because I didn't know if the show was. I was like, I don't know if this book works as a show. I think I've said before, I'm not good at making money off comics. I would die if I think I sold a full first issue, the last issue, pretty good condition, all bagged and boarded for $75 for 40 issues of Sweet Tooth, which is not even cover price.
But again, but that's the kind of thing that there's only a small window for where that would have been we're speculators about how for that. Now, I think you and I both really enjoyed the show. It is coming back, but it's not a huge hit for Netflix. Umbrella Academy was a much bigger hit. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
right now the first issue of Sweet Tooth
Yeah.
goes for more than what I got for the whole series.
Yeah, probably so. Because again,
So,
that's a number
shows you.
one though. That's a number one. So, but they're out there. But the three trades, they are books, and this was true actually even before the adaptation. Now the current printings of the trades have the little like Netflix printing circle there saying, now a show on Netflix or whatnot. But
there's nothing I hate more in the world on a book or a trade or whatever.
I don't like the tie-in versions as well. But again, I understand they move units. But
I'm like, who wants that? Like, well, I don't know. I've never met anyone who prefers that.
Plenty of people don't care about that. Like, I don't know anyone who wants them. I know plenty of people who just can't imagine
reading a copy of The Great Gatsby with Leonardo DiCaprio's face on it.
I don't know. I don't know.
Like, I mean, cringy.
Every year, the Lord of the Rings were coming out. They printed entirely new versions, of the trilogy of the books with different characters from the movie on them. So again, they must be some sort of return on that, or the people that wouldn't do it. But again, what I was saying is, even before the adaptation came out, these trades were ones that you could find out in the world. You could find them. They're ones that were, for the most part, perennially in stock at comic books and in bookstores, wherever you find them, wherever you can buy comics or graphic novels, trade paper collections. It's available. It's out there. I know your library definitely has them. You can get them digitally through Hoopla or Libby or whatnot. These books are out there. And again, that was even before the show happened. And now after the fact, I'm sure it's even more so. So if you haven't read this book, if you've seen the show or have heard of the show and wanted to read the comic, it'll be very, very easy. This will probably be one of the easier books that we've covered so far in terms of kind of ubiquity to go find. Because of the adaptation, because of its kind of general knowledge and awareness in popular culture, whether or not people have read it or seen the show, I think it's a property they've heard of. You can go find this book. It was always out there, and it's even more so now. So if it's something you think about picking up, anywhere that sells books or comics probably has at least volume 1, because if they just want to get you on volume 1, they're going to have that in stock. Any bookstore, any comic shop is probably going to have it, or they can get it for you pretty easily. It's orderable. They can get it. Yeah.
And you can certainly find it at used bookstores everywhere.
Oh, that's true. Of course. Yeah.
And I know like Barnes and Noble has an ever growing trade paperback collection. Yeah. I don't know many comic people who are like, let me get to Barnes and Noble right away. But
for some people, that's where, listen.
I bought some there because
listen.
There's a misprint of Mr. Miracle when it went to paperback, where the exclusive Barnes & Noble thing was printed on the cover rather than being a sticker.
That's true, yeah.
And Mitch got the proof and tweeted and was like, they printed like 5,000 of these. Go get them if you think that's funny. And I was like, yeah, that's hilarious. So but again,
in a way though, so I this is wildly off tangent, but Barnes & Noble's, the way we think about them, they've been closing because that size of bookstore and all that just isn't really manageable wise. But like, there's a new one in our town that has reopened nearby where an old one had closed, and it feels like it's designed to be a smaller footprint kind of mom and pop brick and mortar bookstore feel to it, which is wild to think about because like they aren't like the big major dominant bookseller. Like Barnes and Noble is essentially on life support. Brick and mortar bookshops, all of them, whether they're like a single, small business or big conglomerate, like brick and mortar shops are going under, so like, to save physical bookstores, you would have to go to Barnes and Noble and support them,
Yes. That's the great irony of it. And
yes,
it's hit me because we're in a few months into 2023. And so far they've done like a really attention grabby stuff this year. Earlier, it was late December. It was like right after Christmas. They did buy one, get one free on all hardcover books.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was like, oh, shoot, is there still a Barnes & Noble in town? Because I was like, that still probably pushes them down to Amazon prices. But I would so much still rather support. I felt like I was supporting the little guy. Like going to Barnes and Noble.
Exactly.
I stopped shopping there because I wanted to support the little guy, and now they are the little guy.
Yeah.
And then after that, they did buy one get one 50% off on all Image trades for the month.
Oh yeah, they're
and right now it's buy one get one half off on all manga.
Yeah, and a lot of times either the buy one get one half off. They've also done in the past. They've done buy two get one free. Either you can Marvel, DC, Image, or whatever it is. That's all nice. Publishers. So yeah, they're all kinds of sales there. But yeah, you're right. It is supporting the little guy now. So again, however you get your comics, however you read them, you want to try to support creators and the publishers like that. But again, whether it's a used bookstore, whether it's through your library, I'm all about supporting through the library. I read so much digitally through my library. I don't know the last time I've been into my public library, but I read tons of books from them because I get them through the Hoopla app. So however you can get them, however you can read them, it's available if you want to go out, if you've thought about it, but kind of need a little push to it. Umbrella Academy is one of those books that's out there. Just
to plug another of our Zero episodes, I did go into a physical library for the first time since like the pandemic to pick up my copy of God is Disappointed in You by Mark Russell. And I've been enjoying that each night. So yeah, just that's hilarious stuff.
It's so good.
I think I said this on our Twitter account, but the man just does not miss.
No.
Like Mark Russell is still batting 1,000 for content creation. So just a reminder of all of the great artists we've covered.
Indeed. So yeah, that's the Umbrella Academy. I don't know if we have anything else. I mean, I guess maybe it's a slight tease if you are someone who only has heard the name and have no idea what the book's about. I guess we can give a small little taste of what to expect.
I think if you've listened to of Creator Spotlight, you're in for a penny,
I would assume so. Yeah. But yeah, again, it is a superhero adjacent book. If you're someone who doesn't like superheroes or is turned off by that, that's not what this book's actually about. People have powers, but that isn't what the book is really, really about. But it's superhero adjacent. So if you look at that and you see some things with people flying around or anything like that, it's an element, it's a factor, but it's not the crux of the book. So
it's certainly not following the same like moral arc of the superhero genre.
No.
Nor is it doing the complete deconstruction of the superhero thing.
No.
And for like the actual deconstruction of the superhero thing was like Watchmen. That's what that was. Taking that deconstruction and shoving it up its own is like The Boys.
It's not commentary on superhero comics. It's not trying to do that. It's simply trying to tell a story with the loose framework of superheroes coming together. The idea of this kind of whether it's a family of superheroes or a found family of superheroes, like how does that work? They're simply telling their own story within that framework. Yeah, it's definitely not a commentary. It's not making a judgment, anything like that. It's just trying to create some new and interesting characters, some unique characters, and telling a full and interesting story with them. So again, if superheroes aren't your thing, if that's a turn off for you, I think try to get past that and pick this book up and see beyond that part of it. Because that's just surface level reading of what the book really is.
Yeah. And with that, we will thank you for listening once again to another Creator Spotlight. That is the main thrust of what we're doing here. We'd like to celebrate creators and their works, but we also love getting into the nitty gritty of analyzing the story and, seeing how whatever world they've created touches our reality, which is what we will do the next time we see you, which will be next Thursday. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next week after you have read Umbrella Academy, The Apocalypse Suite, Volume 1.
Peace.